There is a strip of masking tape on one of the bins in my garage. Somebody's initials on it, block letters, black marker. Not Gordon's. I have known Gordon's handwriting 20 years, and it is not his. I never did find out whose. That is not where this starts, though. Morning, Marion. Do not mind me. That is what Gordon Prescott said to me on a Tuesday in June, backing his boat trailer through the side door of my garage like it was something we had agreed on. We had not. He does it 2-3 times a summer now. Always with that same little wave, like he is doing me a favor by not making me watch him do it. I am 91 years old. I have lived in this house on Maple Hollow Road for 68 years. And in 68 years I have learned exactly one thing about being handled, which is that it never introduces itself as handling. It just backs a trailer through your door and calls you by your first name. I was standing on the concrete apron of my own driveway in my slippers when it happened. Coffee going cold in my hand, still in my housecoat because it was not yet 7. I do my best thinking early, before the day gets its hands on me. And most mornings that means standing right there watching the light come up over the Henderson's roofline across the street. Same as I have watched it come up for 68 Junes running. That morning what I watched instead was a boat trailer, backing in slow and careful, tires crunching on the gravel edge of my own driveway. A man I have known 20 years lining it up like a man who had done this exact maneuver a good number of times already without me there to see it. I want to tell you how it started, because it did not start with a boat trailer. Nothing like this ever does. Gordon has had a key to my garage since 2003, 20-some years now. Walter is the one who gave it to him, actually, not me. Walter was still working then, still driving the delivery route twice a week up to the Ashford warehouse. And he liked Gordon fine, liked that Gordon kept an eye on things when we traveled. In case of emergency, Walter said, cutting the spare down at the hardware store on a Saturday morning. And I remember thinking, what emergency requires a man to get into our garage? I did not say it. I let it go. That is mostly what I did in those years, if I am honest. I decided which things were worth saying out loud and which ones I would just carry. For a long while it really was nothing. Gordon used the key maybe twice. Once when a pipe burst 2 doors down and he needed to shut our water off from the street while we were in Ohio visiting Patricia, and once, I think, just to borrow the ladder. That is what a spare key is supposed to be. A thing that sits on a hook somewhere and earns its keep by almost never being used. That garage was Walter's, is what I should tell you. Not on paper. On paper it is mine, same as the house is. Has been since he passed. But in the way a room belongs to whoever spends the most hours standing in it. He had a workbench along the back wall, pegboard above it. Every wrench traced around in black markers so you would know exactly where it went back. He was not a talker, my Walter. 34 years at that warehouse, and he came home most nights and went straight out to that bench and just worked. Did not matter on what. Sharpening the mower blade, fixing a chair nobody asked him to fix. I used to bring him coffee out there around 8, and he would say, "Thank you, Marion," like I had done something remarkable. And that was about the whole of our conversation some nights, and it was enough. I am not telling you that to make you sad. I am telling you so you understand what that wall meant before I tell you what is on it now. Then Walter died. Spring of 2014. I am not going to make this story about that. It is not about that, and Walter would not have liked a lot of talk made over him anyway. But I will say this much. After he was gone, Gordon started coming around more, mowing a strip of my yard along with his own, without asking, which I let go because it was kind, or looked like kindness, and at the time I did not have the strength to sort out the difference. My daughter Diane called a lot that first year, checking whether I was managing, whether I wanted her to look into options, which is Diane's word for things I generally do not want. I told her Gordon was keeping an eye on the yard and the garage both, and I remember her saying, "Oh, good. That is good, Mom. That takes one thing off my mind." Relieved, the way you are relieved when somebody else agrees to hold a thing you did not want to carry either. I do not fault her for that. I did the same thing myself, plenty of times, before I was the one being minded instead of the one doing the minding. Somewhere in there, I could not tell you the year. That is the truth. The years after Walter run together on me, Gordon started keeping his snowblower in my garage over the summer. "Just till first frost," he said. "No sense hauling it back and forth twice." Made sense. I said, "Fine." I told myself that was the last of it. I was wrong twice more after that, and each time I told myself the same thing. Somewhere around then, too, the side door stopped latching flush. Just a little. You would have to be the one closing it every day to notice. I have to lean my shoulder into it now to get the deadbolt to seat right. Told myself for a year it was the house settling. Old houses do that. I have since had cause to wonder whether a door gets used harder by two people than it was ever built for, and starts complaining about it before the person who owns it does. I remember exactly where I was standing when he asked, if not the year, right at the mouth of the garage, holding a bag of birdseed, because that was still an errand I could manage back then. He had asked it so lightly, like a man asking to borrow a cup of sugar, that saying no would have felt like making something out of nothing. That is the trick of it, I think, looking back. Nobody ever asks you for a room. They ask you for one machine, one season, one small favor that happens to need a great deal of square footage to grant. My youngest, Patricia, called around that same stretch. She is out in Colorado, calls the least of the three, and I do not hold it against her the way some might expect me to. She has got her own life out there, and when she does call, she remembers things nobody else does. That year she remembered it was close to the anniversary of a ridiculous inflatable pool toy she had bought me as a joke gift. Decades back, a whole conversation revived out of nowhere, and we laughed about it a good 10 minutes before either of us got around to anything serious. I mention it because it is easy to sort your children into who calls more and who calls less, and harder to remember that the ones who call less sometimes bring you something the frequent ones do not. Then it was the generator, a big gas one, loud, even sitting still it seemed like, wedged in where Walter's stool used to be. Then a stack of clear plastic bins I never did ask about. 8 of them, maybe 10, stacked 2 and 3 high, shoved along the back wall where Walter's workbench used to be clear enough to lay a whole engine out flat. The pegboard is still there. You just cannot see much of it anymore behind the bins. Then, this past spring, the boat trailer, which is really the only thing in that garage too big to pretend is not there. I want to be plain about something. Gordon Prescott has never once in 20 years tried to hurt me. I do not believe that is in him. What happened in my garage is not a story about a bad man. It is a story about a good enough man who stopped asking, because somewhere along the way he decided he already knew the answer. I have turned that over a good deal since, lying awake, trying to pin down exactly where the asking stopped. It was not any single day. It was more like a tide going out. You do not see the water leave. You just notice one morning the boats are sitting in mud that used to be a harbor. Gordon never once sat me down and said, "Marion, I would like to start using your garage as my own. If he had, I would have said no, plainly, and that would have been the end of it. Instead, it arrived a piece at a time, small enough each time that saying anything back would have made me the unreasonable one. Faye Odom came by on a Thursday with tomatoes from her garden. The good ones, the ones that split if you look at them wrong. And she caught me standing in the driveway just looking at the boat trailer like it was going to explain itself to me. That is new, Faye said. Since April, I said. You gave him a whole boat trailer's worth of your garage? I did not give him anything, I said. I just never took it back. Faye set the tomatoes down on the porch step and looked at me the way she has looked at me since we were both 35 years old. And she caught me telling her I was fine when I very clearly was not. Faye has never been shy about a thing. She once told a church usher, to his face, that his sermon summary was longer than the sermon. Well, she said, there is a difference between never taking something back and it never being taken. I did not have an answer for that one. I still do not entirely. We sat on the porch a while after that, the two of us, the way we have done for close to 60 years now. Faye and I met in 1967 at a church rummage sale, arguing gently over the same set of mixing bowls, and she let me have them, which she still brings up whenever she wants something from me. She asked how long the trailer had been sitting there, and I told her since April, and she did the math out loud, the way she does, and said, Marion, that is 3 months you have been walking past that thing every day and saying nothing. I say plenty, I told her, just not to Gordon. That is not the same as saying it. I told her I knew that. I did know it. Knowing a thing and being ready to act on it have never once, in 91 years, arrived in me at the same time. Before she left, she picked a few of the ripest tomatoes back up off the step and pressed them into my hands anyway. Said I looked like I needed something to do with my hands besides worry, and I laughed at that, because she was not wrong. Here is a thing I have not said to anyone, not even Faye. My canning jars used to sit on a shelf along the east wall, above where the bins are now. Blue Ball jars, the old ones, some of them my mother's, going back. I do not even want to guess how far back. I did tomatoes and pickle relish out of that garage every August for probably 50 years, right up until my hands got too uncertain for the hot water bath a few years ago. Sometime this spring, without a word to me, those jars ended up in a cardboard box on the concrete floor, down by the door, to make room on the shelf for Gordon's fishing gear. I found them like that on a Tuesday, 2 of them cracked at the bottom, sitting in a box like they were being thrown out. I did not cry over it. I want that understood. I am not a woman who cries over jars. But I stood there a good while with my hand flat on top of that cardboard box, and I thought about my mother standing at her own stove in 1948, sealing wax onto the lids with a butter knife because that is what she had, and I thought, well, Marion, there it is. That is what no sense hauling it back and forth turns into if you let it run long enough. I picked the box up and carried it inside myself, did not ask Gordon, did not say a word to him about it, just moved it and set it on my kitchen table where I could look at it while I had my coffee. 14 jars. 2 cracked, like I said, and a third with a chip in the rim I had not noticed at first, sharp enough to cut a finger on if you were not careful reaching in. I wrapped that one in a dish towel and put it up high in the cupboard instead of back on any shelf. Did not want to look at it every day. My granddaughter Emily called that same week. She is the one who went into nursing, good head on her, checks in more than the others, and I mentioned it to her just in passing The way you would mention the weather. Gordon's kind of taken over the garage, I said. Taken over how? Boat trailer, snowblower, some bins I do not ask about anymore. There was a pause on the line, the kind Emily does when she's deciding whether to say the nurse thing or the granddaughter thing. Mimi, is that safe? Him having a key like that, coming and going whenever. It is not about safe, I said, and I heard myself get a little sharp, which I had not meant to. It is about it being mine. I know, she said. I just worry it is I do not know. Easier to let it go than to deal with. She is not wrong about that. That is exactly what it is. Easier. I have built a very long life out of easier, and it mostly served me fine, right up until I was standing in my own driveway, watching a boat I have never once been offered a ride in. Before we hung up, Emily asked if I wanted her to say something to Gordon herself next time she visited, offered it kindly, the way she offers most things, and I told her no. Told her if it needed saying, it needed to come out of my own mouth, or it would not count for anything. She did not push on it. That is one of the better things about Emily. She knows the difference between offering help and taking a thing out of your hands. I did not sleep well that whole week, if I am honest. I am up 2-3 times most nights anyway now. My hip lets me know about it, and my bladder has got opinions of its own at 91. But that week I would lie there and find myself listening for the garage. Nothing to hear, really. Just habit, I suppose, the ear doing what the mind will not quite let go of. One night I got up around 2 and stood at the kitchen window in my robe, looking out at the shape of that boat trailer under the yard light, and I thought, not for the first time, that I have gotten very good at lying still under things instead of getting up and moving them. The thing that finally did it was not the trailer. It was smaller than that, and dumber. And I will tell you because it is the truth and not because it makes me look good. I went out to the garage on a Saturday morning to get my hand trowel. I still do a little in the flower beds along the front walk, down on a cushion, slow, but I do it. And the trowel was not on its hook. It was not anywhere I could see. I stood there a long time looking at a wall that used to make sense to me and did not anymore. Bins where the shelf should be. A tarp over something I did not recognize. Dark green canvas with somebody else's paint stains on it, not mine, not Walter's. And right there at eye level, close enough to touch, was that same strip of masking tape I told you about at the start. The initials that are not Gordon's. GP would have been his. This was not. I looked harder that morning than I ever let on to anyone. Never did work it out. My own trowel, God knows where. In a garage I would have sworn under oath I could still find my way around blind. Gordon came out onto his porch about then, coffee in hand, and called over, friendly as anything. Looking for something? My trowel, I said. Oh, might be under the top. I moved some stuff around back there last week. I will dig it out for you. I will dig it out for you. In my own garage. Like I was a guest who had misplaced her umbrella. Gordon, I said, how long have you been moving things around in there? He laughed. Not unkind, just easy. The way you laugh at a question you do not take seriously. Oh, I do not know. A while now. Figured you were not really using the back half anyway, Marion, so... He did not finish it. He did not need to. I stood there and let that sentence hang in the June air. Figured you were not really using it anyway. And I understood, all at once and much too late, that a man had decided, on his own, without asking me one time, what parts of my own house belonged to me and what parts did not. I want to be fair to him, even now. He was not wrong that I had not been back there much. My hands do not do fine work anymore, and there was not a whole lot for me in that back corner once Walter's tools stopped being anybody's business but a memory. But not using a thing and it not being yours are two entirely separate facts, and Gordon had gone and quietly folded one into the other, the way people do when it is convenient for them to. He went back to digging under the tarp for my trowel, still talking, still easy, telling me something about how he had been meaning to ask if I minded him keeping the trailer through August on account of a fishing trip with his son-in-law, and I stood there in my own driveway and realized he was asking me now, after the fact, the way you would ask permission for something you had already decided to do regardless of the answer. I will think about it, I told him, which surprised us both, I think, coming out as flat and final as it did. I did not say anything else to him that morning. I went back inside, made a cup of tea I did not drink, and sat at the kitchen table for a while looking at the phone book, which I still keep, because I like the feel of it more than looking things up on the little tablet Emily bought me. I called a locksmith out of Ashford. A young man, very polite, said he could come Monday. I want to say I agonized over it, made some kind of production out of it, but the truth is it took about 4 minutes, start to finish, and most of that was me finding my glasses. The young man's name was Dale. Could not have been older than 30. Tattoo of something on his forearm I did not ask about. Very careful about wiping his boots on my mat before he came in for a glass of water. He asked, was I sure I only wanted the one door done? And I told him yes, just the side door, the one with Gordon's key in it. Did not explain further, and he did not need me to. Charged me $85, which I thought was fair, and I paid him in cash out of the tin I keep in the pantry, because I do not like putting things like that on a card if I do not have to. Monday morning, Dale changed the cylinder on the garage's side door, while I stood there in my cardigan holding the new keys in my hand like they were something. 3 of them, cut fresh, bright brass, sharp edges that had not rounded down yet from anybody's pocket. I put one on my own ring, put the second in the kitchen drawer where I keep the flashlight and the extra batteries. The third I gave to Faye that same afternoon, told her it was for emergencies, and watched her understand exactly what I meant by that without me having to spell it out. Gordon came over around noon, must have seen the locksmith's van, stood in the driveway a minute before he said anything. Changing the locks? Changing the locks, I said. Marion, if I did something. You did not do any one thing, Gordon, I said. That is rather the trouble. You did about 40 small things over about 10 years and never once out loud. He did not argue with me. I will give him that. He stood there working his jaw a little, the way men his age do when they are turning something over and do not love the shape of it. And then he said, I will get my stuff out this week. Take your time, I told him. Just knock first, going forward. He nodded at that, and I could see him deciding whether to say anything more. And in the end, he just picked at a loose thread on his shirt cuff and said, 20 years. And I never once thought of it as taking anything. I believe that, I do. I told him so. It did not change what I had done with the locksmith, and it did not need to. A man can be telling the truth about his own intentions and still owe you a new set of keys. He cleared the boat trailer out that Thursday. Took the bins, the fishing gear, most of it, though the snowblower is still sitting along his own back fence with a tarp over it, which tells me he is already planning to ask me, come November, whether he can put it back for the winter. I have not decided yet what I will say. I found my trowel, by the way, under the tarp, exactly where he said it would be. It had not gone anywhere. It just was not mine to look for in my own garage anymore for a while there, and I do not know that I have got the words for how strange a thing that is to realize about a building I have owned since Eisenhower was president. I put the canning jars back up on the east wall myself, the ones that did not crack, one jar at a time, going slow, wiping the dust off each one first, setting them back in the same order they had always sat in. My shoulder complained about it for 2 days after. Did not care. Gordon still waves when he sees me. I wave back. We are neighbors, and neighbors go on being neighbors, mostly. Even after one of them has had to draw a line the other one should have known was there all along. He has not asked about the snowblower yet. November is a ways off still. And the initials on that bin, the ones I never did place, those left with him too, Thursday, wherever the rest of it went. I stood in the driveway and watched the trailer pull out, watched it turn onto Maple Hollow, and head toward wherever Gordon keeps the rest of his life, and that was that. I never did learn whose initials they were. I stopped wondering about it somewhere around Tuesday. The side door latch is flush now, too. Dale checked it while he was here, said the frame had shifted a hair off true, and set it right in about 10 minutes, no charge. Called it a professional courtesy. I close that door most nights now just to feel it catch. The new key, the one that is mine, the only one that exists now, because I did not have a second one cut for anybody, not yet, maybe not ever. That one hangs on the hook just inside my back door, right next to the little photo of Walter in his warehouse coat. That is where it is staying.